Day Meter 122, and it's list day. Oh, it is the end of the year of 2017, so it's time for us to start going over what are the best and worst cards that have come out this year. Today is going to be the top 10 best cards that came out, which is cool because that's the easy one to do because the best cards to play, so I don't have to do any research. It's just the cards that we all know are good. But on that note, before I start the list, I want to have you guys put down in the comments below what you guys think are the worst cards that came out this year, because that's going to take a lot of work to kind of compile that list, so any help that you guys can give me would be great. And the sets that we will include are everything that came out this year between Raging Tempest and Spirit Warriors. But remember, if it's a reprint of a card that came out in a year before, or any other year that isn't 2017, that doesn't count. It needs to be new this year. So, like, what is it? The Megatons probably won't have a ton of cards in them because that includes sets that came out before for the 2017. So that means sets like the Megatons and some of its best cards won't be included on the list because those came out the year before. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 10 is Trigate Wizard. Trigate is an Earth Link 3 Cyberse monster with 2200 attack and no defense because it's a Link monster. And the way he works is the more he is co-linked, the more effects he gets. If he's co-linked with one monster, any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent is doubled. Okay, that's cute, I guess. It's not super relevant, but it could come in handy for an OTK. If he's co-linked twice, once per turn, you can target one card in the field and banish that target. Sure, it's not a quick effect, but you know, we can't hit everything. But the fact that it's just once per turn means you can do this as long as it's on the field. That's really good. It's one extra little piece of removal that you have. It banishes instead of destroys, so that's always good. Plus, you know, co-linking him twice isn't very difficult to do. But if he is co-linked 3 times with every single arrow that he's got, once per turn when a card or effect is activated, you can just negate that effect and banish the card. Ooh-hoo-hoo! The reason why he is so high on the list at number 10 is because this is a very powerful effect. Banishing a card that you're negating its effect of is fantastic. However, co-link him with 3 other Link monsters is a lot of work. So he's a little hard to pull off. And the decks that could do him really well, for instance like Spirals, can't do it anymore. So we'll put him at 10, which is a nice safe spot for him for now. Number 9 is Trickstar Reincarnation. I figured the best way to include some of the best decks in the game right now would to include one card from that deck and then say it kind of as an honorary spot holder for the entire deck. And Trickstars have proven that even though they're kind of a silly gimmicky, troll deck, they are powerful enough and consistent enough and have a small enough main deck engine where they can put in a bunch of tech cards where they can actually compete at a competitive level, and they're clearly a tier 2, tier 1 deck. So, you know what? Good on them. And if we had to pick one card to represent the deck, it'd be their trap card, because it's arguably their best card. I remember the first time I read this card, it's that first line that made me go, what? Banish your opponent's entire hand. Wow. And if you do, they draw the same number of cards that they banished. Oh, so they get to replenish their hand, but they still lost every card in their hand to the banish pile. That means a lot of that stuff they can't use anymore. Plus, if they use this in response to like a search card, that means they're gonna lose the card they were getting at or trying to get at. So therefore, you might have borked their play. And obviously, if you combo this thing with Droll and Lockbird, they just banish their whole hand and they don't draw anything, and you just laugh at them because they got a scoop. And then you can banish this card from your graveyard in order to target a Trickstar monster in your graveyard and resurrect it to the field. That's really cool. That's the effect that you use in Trickstars, but the fact that that first effect is actually generic is what puts this card over the edge. But that means other decks, like an empty jar style deck, can totally run this and be completely fine and not have to run another Trickstar card at all. So yeah, this card's really good. Alistar the Invoker. Alistar's taken the spot up the same way Reincarnation is for his entire deck. The whole invoked deck, or even invoked Wind Witch, let's say, because that's it. They normally play them together. And the reason why I picked Alistar is because without him, the deck doesn't really work. He's their main card. Like he is the man. He's the fusion guy. He's the wizard making Mechaba and stuff. So you gotta have him. He's like the face of the deck. And he's a hand trap. That's neat. Once per turn during the other player's turn, you can target one fusion monster in the field that gains 1,000 attack and defense. So he's kind of like an honest. That's cute. You know, it comes in handy once in a while, but we really don't care about that. We care about that second effect. When it's normal summoned or flipped face up, so it's not necessarily just a flip summon, so I guess if it was attacked into, you would get the search as well. You get to search one invocation from your deck to your hand, which, that's the fusion spell. That's how you make your evoke monsters. It's It's the point of the deck, so he gets it. He gets the point of like I told you, he's the one summoning the monsters, right? Is what he does. So yeah, Alistar. Without him, deck don't work. Number 7 it's Babushka. Babushka, the terribly tired tapir, is a fantastic rank 4. He might be one of the best rank 4s we ever got. And it's funny too, because you know the rank 4 toolbox did not need another broken card, but it got one, and it might be a little late, but it's still a very fantastic rank 4. And I think what makes Babushka even better than some of the other rank 4s is he's defensive. And rank 4 toolbox is very responsive. Like, you got a problem on board, I got a rank 4 to deal with it. However, they don't have a lot of cards that you can just play and then pass and let your opponent have to deal with it. So the fact that this is a defensive card is really fantastic. And he does have 2 effects and an interesting mechanic where his effect changes depending on what battle position he is in. So that's neat, I suppose. During your standby phases, you must detach from him, and if you can't detach a card, he dies. So basically, it's kind of like his life force. Kind of a la, I don't know, Acid Golem style thing, or Harpy's Phantasmal Dragon, where it's like instead of to use his effect, it's just how many turns you can have the card. If he's in attack position, he cannot be destroyed by card effects or targeted by your opponent's card effects, which means in attack mode, he's next to invincible, except for his attack is pretty weak, so there's always that. But even still, he's hard to deal with in attack mode. But it's that defense position effect that we really care about and is arguably the better of the 2, and that is when he is in defense position, he forces all other monsters on the field into defense position as well. And those monsters in defense position cannot activate their effects. So he's kind of like a walk-on skill drain. Man, he's really good. Pendulum Magicians really needed a defensive go-first card that's a monster, and this was certainly it. Other than, like, I don't know, Dweller. Alright, here's where we start really splitting hairs, because all these cards are fantastic and they're only used in their own deck, so it's really hard to say which one is better than the other. So we'll just kind of go in any order we got. How about Masterpiece next? Masterpiece, the true Draco Slaying King, is a fantastic boss monster for the true Draco archetype, and he's actually probably, arguably, should be on the ban list, but okay, whatever, what does he do? Like most of the true Draco cards, you can tribute summon continuous spells and traps instead of just monsters in order to play it, but he has this neat little bonus effect where he gains immunity to card effects based on what was tributed. If he tributes a spell, he's immune to spells. If he tributes a trap, he's immune to traps, and if he attributes a monster, he's immune to monsters. At 2950 attack and gaining 2 out of the 3 card types of immunity when it's played means this card can be an absolute bear to deal with. Not only that, but the field spell helps protect him and gives him an attack boost, so there's always that. Unless, of course, he's immune to spells. And on top of it, he can banish as a quick effect 1 continuous spell or trap from your graveyard to destroy 1 card in the field. Ooh, he is super oppressive and a fantastic boss monster, and the bane of many a rogue player's existence. That truck has to go by. Time Pendulum Graph is next. Like I said, they're all really good cards and they're all good in their deck. But I put Trap Graph higher than Masterpiece because, you know, True Dracos are really good and they're all kind of big and they do a lot of cool stuff. So they're a good deck with or without Masterpiece, just they're better with Masterpiece. But Pendulum Magicians are just a very consistent deck, but don't really have a power play without Trap Graph. Trap Graph is their power play. It's super defensive. It gets them a ton of advantage. It's very searchable. It's an extra broken card, and it's great. It's a continuous trap that reads, your opponent cannot target spellcaster type monsters with trap effects. This doesn't come up much, but it is what its continuous effect is. Sure. But it's that once per turn other effect that we actually care about. You can target 1 Pendulum Magician monster on your field or in your pendulum zones, destroy it, and destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Then it's got this really weird condition where if it didn't manage to kill both of the targets you selected, you can send 1 card from the field to the graveyard instead, in addition to the 1 card you did actually manage to kill, assuming you killed 1. Now this effect is really weird, doesn't make a ton of sense, but when you see it comboed with something like their rank 4 or Pendulum Call, where it prevents the destruction of 1 of your pendulum monsters or 1 of your scales, this thing will fail to kill the card on your side of the field, and you basically just get to get rid of 2 cards your opponent controls, which is broke. The fact that this thing's continuous, you can keep doing it every turn, and it's just basically +1s and +2s every turn after that, it's just fantastic. Not to mention that second effect, happens during resolution, so you can't really negate the send effect because it happens like when everything else is done happening. It's a really weird way the card works, as well as the fact that it's a send, not a destroy, so it gets around things like Beals' self-protection and things like that. Yes, Trap Graph. Oh boy, it's really hot in here. Spiral Double Helix is the next entry on our list. I wish he could be higher, but the last three are really, really good, and I figured Helix should be the best of the it's really good in its specific deck cards. And the reason why I put him higher than Masterpiece and Trapgraph is Pendulums and True Dracos are both good decks, and those two cards are good cards in good decks, but Helix is a broken card in a bad deck. So he's automatically better than the other two because he turned a deck from Infinity tier into tier 0 overnight because he fixes every single problem the deck had, and it's fan-freaking-tastic. What does Double Helix do? Well, he's a Link 2 monster made of 2 Spiral monsters. This card's name becomes Spiral Super Agent while it's on the field or the graveyard, which that's number 1 fixes something with the deck, because when you opened, let's say, Quick Fix and a Machine Dupe in the old build of the deck, yeah, you got tons of advantage, but if you don't have a Super Agent, you can't do anything with it because all the cards pretty much require, in one way or another, a Super Agent on the field or in the hand to work. The fact that you can turn those 2 or 3 Spiral Quick Fixes that you got off your Machine Dupe into this thing, which turns them into a Spiral Super Agent, means all that crap you searched is now live. That just fixes so many issues. But not only that, he has an effect himself. When you declare the top card of your opponent's deck, monster, spell, or trap correctly, you can summon a Spiral from your deck. The other main issue that Spirals had was one of their biggest monsters, which gains them some of the most advantage, Spiral Master Plan, was really actually kind of a bear to summon in the deck. There wasn't a good way to do it, which is kind of why I made my Spiral Dark Magicians, because she is a dark spellcaster. But you know what? And she's level 9 or 7, I guess. But even still, clumsy and stupid. No, don't even need it anymore. Him, you can just summon her from the deck, and then you can just link her away and draw, search. It's stupid. And you know what? This fixes every problem the deck had. It's really probably perfect card design, let's be real. Now we're getting to the more generic, it's just broke cards. And next up is Firewall Dragon, the mascot of the Link mechanic. And the main character of the Vrain's TV shows, like, buddy card. He's like the dark magician of the series. And yeah, he's got kind of a confusing effect. It's a little weird, but when you start seeing it used with like other copies of himself, for instance, you start understanding why this card is so high on the list. Once while this card is face up on the field, up to the number of cards this is co-linked to, you can bounce a card from the field or the graveyard to the hand. It's either player's field, either player's graveyard, and it's only once per, I guess, while it's face up, but it's as many co-links as it has. Which is automatically, you know, any bouncing effect, especially from the field and graveyard, is automatically loopy. We all know that. But he also has something else. When a card leaves a zone this thing points to, he can summon a monster from the hand. So this thing's bouncing cards to the hand, and it's summoning cards from the hand. This is a loop engine if I've ever seen one. And not only is he potentially a loop engine, he's most certainly a loop engine. And as the last couple of ban lists have showed us, instead of putting Firewall Dragon on the list, they will just hit every card that he looped. At this point, I think there's like, what, 2 or 3 cards on the list that are only on the list because Firewall Dragon loops them. So clearly he is an issue. But you do kind of need him in order to play Link summons properly, because it's just kind of, he's just an enabler for it. So I can see why they're trying to not get him. Plus he's the main character's card, so you know, it'd be kind of crappy if the little kids who are watching the anime and want to play the game, then you find out that their favorite guy is on the ban list. So okay, fine. But Firewall Dragon, fantastic card, and it's very generic. Next up we have Evenly Matched. Ooh, the last two were a battle in my head of which one is better than the other, because they are both fantastic cards in their own right. And Evenly Matched is most certainly very strong. At the end of the battle phase, which is really strangely a bad activation condition that's really clumsy and weird and slow and annoying, especially for a trap card. So if you were just to stop here, you think the card would suck. Oh no. If your opponent controls more cards than you force them to banish cards face down until they control the same number of cards you do. Hence the whole evenly matched thing. But here's the kicker. Here's what makes this card good. If you don't control any other cards, you can just play this thing from your hand. It's a hand trap in the most literal of senses. So even though trap cards are normally slow, this thing If you want, you can just start your turn, do nothing, enter your battle phase, do nothing, end your battle phase, and just slap this thing down and wipe your opponent's board, all except for the one card that this thing matches. So decks that really need to make big boards, something like Spirals or something like Pendulum Magicians, where they have no choice but to explode because that's how the deck works, means they have a really poor matchup against a card like this. This card is fantastic, but it's also kind of super sacky because it's not very searchable. But hey, card's broke. Honorable mentions this time around were difficult because, frankly, this year has been a very good year for power creep, and there is a lot of really good cards. So we have one card that's really good but didn't make the list because not really any fault of his own, it's just that his deck got hit, so it really hurt him as a card. And the other ones are actually on the list themselves, so it really hurts their usability. So we'll start with the one who's an honorable mention because of bad luck. Ultimate Conductor Toriano. This card is the boss monster for the dinosaur deck. He's really strong, but with the hits to the dinosaur deck as well as the loss of his Yang Zing engine monster, the Synchro, it really hurts him, but he's still very good, but the rest of his deck kind of got taken down, so now he's got to carry it. So unfairly to him, that kind of stinks. The deck is still getting some relatively decent tops, but I wouldn't say that he's better than evenly matched or something. So okay, he's an honorable mention, because it would do him a disservice not to at least mention him. Next up, we have Zodiac Trident, another card that's really good, but, it's on the ban list. It's literally banned. You can't use it, so therefore it's gone. The card's really good, pops one card, it's a quick effect, one card Xyz summon, rank 4, it's got everything going for it. It even gets bigger attack, more material it's got. So you know what? The card's fantastic, but again, it's on the ban list. So I always tend to put cards on the ban list in honorable mentions instead of actually on the list, because it's really kind of hard to quantify. Is a card that you can play better than a card that's better than it, but that you can't play? Like, it's just a weird thing. That grass looks greener. This card's really weird because it's still really powerful. It still sets up your graveyard like no other card, but the fact that it's at 1 and wants to be played in decks that are over 40 cards is like a double hit to its consistency. Not only is it at 1, so it's hard to see, you need to play it in a big deck, so it's harder to see. It really ruins the card and makes it kind of unplayable. Sure, there are some, 60-card Lightsworn decks doing well because, they have other means of milling. They don't need to rely on this thing, but my Tiny Turtle Turbo can't play anymore because they only have 3 grass and the 3 left arm for it. Boo! But okay, fine. It's still a very good card, and if you see it, like, your Inferno deck's gonna explode because it's super sacky now. But at 1, it really hurts its playability. And the last honorable mention is exactly the same thing I just said for grass, and that's set rotation. Set rotation's a really strange card because the power creep for set rotation went backwards. It actually got better the longer it was out, which is probably why it's on the list now. When it was at 3, you could easily search the field spell that your deck needed, and you could give your opponent a stupid field spell that they can't use that just totally bricks them and keeps them from playing their own field spell, which is fantastic. Not only that, but it's a weird accidental counter to evenly matched. Because you're giving your opponent some dumb, bogus field spell, they now can't just drop evenly matched from their hand at the end of their battle phase. I don't know if this was ever intended or anything. I think it's a happy accident, but you know what? It counters evenly matched. But putting it at 1 really hurts the card because now you have as many of it as you have of the Garnet spell, so you're just as likely to see the bogus field spell as this, so that kind of hurts the card, doesn't make it work very well. But, if you play this and maybe your deck plays 3 field spells with another field spell that it would kind of play if it saw it, or you could give it to your opponent, not really matter either way. Maybe you play this with 3 terraforming if you really, I don't know, but at 1 it hurts it. Oh, you guys all saw this one coming. Ash Blossom, Enjoy a Spring. Ash Blossom is a fantastic hand trap. It's probably one of the best cards ever printed, and it's frustratingly expensive because I actually like the card. It's so nice having it in your hand, and when your opponent does something, you're like, oh yeah? It's a really nice feeling because it's just a nice feeling having that security in your hand, It's like you can't do anything about it because you can't really hit my hand with many cards that anyone's actually playing, so it's just really nice. And you know what? I don't own any. Well, what does it do? During the other player's turn, you can discard this card to activate one of its 3 effects. It has 3 effects. You can negate an effect where your opponent is trying to add a card from their deck to their hand. You can negate a special summon from the deck, or you can negate a card being sent from the deck to the graveyard. So this is like Foolish Burials, or You're Totally Awesome Standby Phase effect, or like any draw card ever, like Pot of Desires or something. You just chain this to it and watch them banish 10 cards and get nothing for it and laugh at them, stuff like that. You can only use one of these effects once per turn, meaning you can't double ash somebody in a turn, but frankly, most of the time all you ever need to do is resolve one and you watch your opponent cry at you. But that isn't even the whole of it. She is a fire level 3 zombie tuner. It's like why? Like, it could only be better if it was a light, but we have Ghost Ogre for that. But you know what? The fact that it's a zombie and a tuner and a fire gives it weird Shiranui and generic zombie synergy. And the fact that it's a tuner means you can synchro with it. They just put way too many options in a card, and a lot of those are moot points because most of the time you're just using it as a hand trap. But remember, as a zombie, you're sending it from your hand to the graveyard, and then you can just summon it back with something like Mizuki, because it is a zombie, so if you're playing a zombie deck, you have this option. So it's just, they made this card really, really powerful. It's kind of goofy. By the way, that was the list. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I'm going to do a short wrap up here because it's going to get really, really long. So like I said, next couple of videos, one of them is going to be the worst cards of the year. So I want you guys to put that down below, what you guys think of some of the bad cards that came out this year. I mean, like the worst of the worst. I don't care if, you know, I don't care how niche the use is. If it's just generally really, really bad, stick it in the comments below. And remember guys, if you don't troll the meta, who will? I will see you guys next time.
Oh, hey losers. What are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Wanna watch something else? Hurry up and choose one of these. Ugh. When are you gonna make a choice? This year would be nice.